everyone. My name is Tracy Graham. I'm the Adult Services Librarian at the Westborough Public Library. And I just want to say thank you for coming out. When you do, you're supporting the library. So on behalf of the staff, I want to say thank you for coming out tonight. I am very excited to learn a bit about what we're going to hear and listen to tonight. I'm really excited about our presenter and our musician. Before we get started, I will say it's very important to point out that this program is supported in part by a grant from the Westborough Cultural Council, a local agency which is supported by the Mass Cultural Council, a state agency. So, again, I have the pleasure of introducing musician Jeff Snow. Growing up as the son of a drummer in a bagpipe band in the home where older Celtic songs were everyday sounds, Jeff developed a love for the music of Scotland, England, and Ireland. Much of the history of those lands is preserved in song. Among the variety of stringed and percussive instruments that he plays are the 6 and 12-string guitar, the auto harp, and the drums. The magical sounds from those instruments, coupled with vocals, and Jeff's love and knowledge of his Scottish heritage, create a delightful program of traditional and original tunes and songs. Tonight you'll hear stories along with the songs, as Jeff will educate as well as entertain. So please enjoy the Softer Side of Celtic.
That sounds much more impressive than it really is. Come by the hills to the land where fancy is free, and stand where the peaks meet the sky and the lochs meet the sea, where the rivers run clear and the bracken is gold in the sun, and the cares of tomorrow can wait till this day is done. Come by the hills to the land where life is a song, and sing while the birds fill the air with their joy all day long, where the trees sway in time and even the wind sings in tune, and the cares of tomorrow can wait till this day is done. Come by the hills to the land where legend remain, where stories of old fill the heart and may yet come again, where our past has been lost and the future is still to be won, and the cares of tomorrow can wait till this day is done, and the cares of tomorrow can wait till this day is done. Thank you. There will be a brief interlude here while I make an adjustment, because I thought it would be nice if I played in tune tonight. Right there. Thank you. Come on. Come on. Perfect. Here we go. Now we're ready. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for coming out and sharing your evening with me tonight. The first one is an old Irish tune called Come By the Hills. Beautiful song, and it's got one of those song lines in there that everybody who's ever written any songs or poems wish that they had written. May the cares of tomorrow wait until this day is done. I wish I had written that, but that was written hundreds of years ago, so it wasn't by me. The second one is an old English tune from the 1600s. We know it for most of the year as Greensleeves. We take it out at Christmas time and we take away the Greensleeves word. And we put another set of words up on top of it and we call it, What Child Is This? When you do that in music, that's called piggybacking a song. When you take a melody and you just keep adding different words to it. It's piggybacking. And that's a good thing to remember because we'll talk about that several times as we roll through the Celtic lands tonight. We have visited England and we have visited Ireland. And we are going to also hit Scotland and Wales before we're done tonight. And we're going to kind of wander in and out of all of them and learn a little bit about the history and what goes on and what happened in all these places. But before we start and before we get into that, I've discovered over the years that it's good to get this part out of the way up front. I am a Scot. I am a Scot. And nobody got up and left, so far we're good. I grew up, as Tracy told you, I grew up in a Scottish household. My dad was a drummer in a bagpipe band. So the music that played in the house when I was a child growing up with bagpipe records and Scottish folk songs and all kinds of things like that. That's all the music that I learned as a child. It's just the way that it was, and that was fine. Some of the things I play for you tonight will be pieces of music that I learned as a child growing up. Because of that, when I became a father, I have 3 boys. When I became a father, I raised my boys the way that I was raised. Because when you have children, that's what you do. Because that's what you understand and is normal for you. So picture this if you can. We have 3 adolescent boys, and it's time to go off on the family adventure. And we'd pack everything in the car, and 3 boys in the car. We'd back out of the driveway. Remember cassette tapes? That's what we had back then. Take a cassette tape of bagpipe music, pop it in, and off we go for 6 hours in the car listening to bagpipes. What, what adolescent boy wouldn't love that? Well, I found out what adolescent boy wouldn't love that. 5 years ago this year, my birthday rolled around, and I went out to the mailbox, and in the mailbox was a small package from one of my sons who now lives in South Carolina. Those of you who are parents and have children that have gone other places and moved away know what a big deal it is when your kid remembers your birthday in any context, right? Just a text message is if you want to jump up and down and go, hooray. So getting a present was a really big deal. I got excited. I went in the house, set it on the counter, opened up the box ever so carefully. In the box was a test kit from Ancestry.com. So I thought about that for a moment, and I called my son, and I said, thank you for remembering me on my birthday. What's your point? And I got, well, Dad, the point is this. When my brothers and I were younger, you made us listen to Scottish this and Scottish that and folk songs and bagpipe music. You even kept telling us that McDonald's was a Scottish restaurant. And now we're going to find out exactly how Scottish you really are. Okay, so I sit here tonight before you in Westborough, Massachusetts, very proud to tell you that according to the smart people at Ancestry.com, who get paid lots of money to figure these things out, I am 83% Scottish. That is a big number. That is a big number. And those of you that are parents will also know how much fun I had calling my son to give him the test results. He's never wanted to talk about that in the last 5 years. It's like it's gone from his memory someplace. So let us go to Scotland. Let's go make our first trip to Scotland tonight. And let us go to Scotland in the middle of the 1800s. In the middle of the 1800s in Scotland, there was a time that we now know as the Highland Clearances. The Highland Clearances, this is what they were, this is how they came about. Almost all of the land from the middle of Scotland, north and west, up into the Western Islands, out to Skye, and all the way up the western side, all of that land was owned by just a handful of landowners. They owned massive, massive tracts of land. And that land was broken up into smaller pieces of land that they called crofts. And the people that lived on the crofts were crofters. Crofters were just like sharecroppers were here in America. They lived on the land and they had a smaller 2, 5, 10 acre piece of land, and they would raise animals or vegetables, or they would do something on the land in order to sustain themselves and their family. And every year they would take part of the money that they made and go back to the landowner and pay him a tax or a fee for the use of the land. That worked really, really well in Scotland for hundreds of years. But in the middle of the 1800s, the landowners all got together and figured out that if we had one big piece of land instead of thousands of small pieces of land, we could make more money by raising sheep and doing things like that ourselves. So we want to consolidate our lands and get rid of the crofters. Well, you've got tens of thousands of people living there. What do you do with them? How do you get rid of them? Actually, it was pretty easy back then. If you remember your history and you think back, the Scots and the English didn't get along terribly well back then. And they don't get along all that well today, but it was really nasty back then. And so the Scottish landowners got together and went to the British Army and said, how'd you like to come up and have a go at the Scots? And the British Army went, yeah, good for us. So up they came and they attacked the crofters. Some of the crofters took off. They went up through the Highlands, popped up someplace else, started a new life someplace else, and just did what they had to do. Many of the crofters dug in and stopped, and they fought. They tried to resist. They were killed. And many of the crofters just surrendered. They gave up. Those that gave up were taken prisoner, and they were brought to the coast of Scotland and put on boats, and the boats were sent away. The boats came across the ocean. Many of them first hit land in what we know today as the maritime provinces of Canada. The light's coming on now, isn't it? If you go up to the maritime provinces in Canada today, you'll find a lot of people of Scottish descent up there. That's how they got there. That's how they got there. Some of the boats came over and went up the Cape Fear River into the port of Wilmington, North Carolina. They got off the boats and went up into the Appalachian Mountains. If you go up into the Appalachian Mountains today, you will find a lot of people of Scottish descent up there. That's how they got there. And in a roundabout kind of way, that's how I got to Westborough, Massachusetts tonight. My great-great-grandparents came to America in the Highland clearances. They settled in Simsbury, Connecticut, and a whole lot of things happened, and here I am. There was so many things that happened in the Celtic lands. The way that they record and memorialize the event is that somebody writes a song about it. This is a song about the Highland clearances. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Don't cry in your sleep, bonny babe. Once our valleys were ringing with the sounds of the children singing. Sheep bleat late in the evening. Sheilings lie empty and broken. We stood with heads bowed in prayer while factors laid the cottages bare. The flames, the fires, the clear mountain air. Many were dead by the morning. Where was our proud Highland metal? Our men once so feared in battle stand cowed, huddled like cattle, waiting to be shipped o'er the ocean. No use pleading or praying, now gone, gone, all hopes of staying. Hush, hush, the anchor's awaying. Don't cry in your sleep, bonny babe. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Don't cry in your sleep, bonny babe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That one was cheery, eh? No, it wasn't. But you know, we tend to think of, when we hear Celtic music, we tend to quickly think of the fiddle tunes that roll by at 180 or 200 beats a minute. We've all heard those, dealy, 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 or the bang your glass on the bar song and spill beer all over yourself, when aren't we having fun songs? All good stuff, all good stuff. But there are so many songs that don't get played and so many stories that don't get told. That's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go to places that maybe you've never been before, and you'll hear things that you've never heard before. So that's what it's going to be. And excuse me for just a moment. This is, I was trying to count earlier, this is day 21 or 22 in a row for me. So my fingers and my throat are getting a little bit beat up. But the water bottle will save me. "1851, Michael Considine was born. Michael Considine was born in County Clare, Ireland, in a little crossroads village that arrives on the road known as Spancel Hill. As he was growing up, Michael realized, as so many other young men did, that there was no future for him in Ireland. If you think back to the middle of the 1800s, they had the potato famine going on, and associated with that was a lot of sickness and disease and death. And Ireland lost about 1/3 of their population in a 20-year period. They just lost almost 3 million people. That's a lot of people. Michael Considine was growing up then, and he realized, as so many other young men did, that if he was going to make something of himself in the world, it wasn't going to be in Ireland. He needed to get out of there. So like so many other Irish lads did, he came across the ocean. He came into the port of Boston, and he got off the boat and spent less than a year in Boston before realizing that there are a lot more Irish lads in Boston looking for work than there was work for them, because they were literally coming over by the hundreds of thousands at that point. And if he was going to survive in America, he was going to need to go someplace else. Michael had heard of the prosperity in California. They had a gold rush and all of the associated things with that. So across the country he went. He settled in San Francisco, spent the rest of his life in San Francisco. Michael Considine died in San Francisco in 1873. He was 22 years old when he died. History does not tell us what Michael Considine died from. Back in the middle of the 1800s, causes of death were not something they wrote down. They just kind of checked your name off and kept going. But history does give us this. When Michael was dying, he knew that he was dying. He was dying of something that was taking him progressively. His death was not sudden and unexpected. That made him sad for a couple of reasons. The first and most obvious reason is that he's 22 years old and he knows he's going to die. That would make just about anybody sad. But he also knew that he was never going to go back to Ireland. See, when the immigrants came here back then, came to America, it was a mark of their success in America to have enough money, enough resources to be able to go back to your village, go back to your family and say, look at me. I got out of here. I went to America. I've done well. I can afford to come back and see you. And those visits back were almost always accompanied by money for the family to help the family get along. Michael knew that he was never going to have that moment, and that made him sad. Not terribly long before he died, Michael had a very vivid dream one night. And in that dream, he went to Ireland. And while he was there in the dream, he did all the things that he would have done had he been able to go there. He visited the house that he grew up in. He visited his family. He visited his friends. He even went off and found his old girlfriend and checked in on her to see how she was. It was a very vivid and memorable dream. And when he woke up in the morning, he wrote it down. He made a whole series of notes based on the dream. And from there, he took those notes and rolled them into a poem, an ode, if you will, to his village back in Ireland. With all that Michael had going on in his soon-to-be very short life, he had the foresight to take that poem, put it in an envelope, and mail it back to his nephew in Ireland. That is the reason the poem survived all of these years. This is Michael Considine's poem. Last night, as I lay dreaming of pleasant days gone by, my mind was bent on rambling. To Erin's Isle I did fly. I stepped aboard a vision, and I sailed off with a will, till we gladly came to anchor at the cross on Spancel Hill. It being the 23rd of June, the day before the fair, Erin's sons and daughters, they were all assembled there. The young, the old, the stout and the bold, they came to sport and kill. It's a curious combination at the fair on Spancel Hill. I went to see my old home, as every stone could tell. The old Boreen was just the same, the apple trees over the well. I miss my sister Ellen, my brothers Pat and Bill. There only were strange faces at the house on Spancel Hill. I went to see my neighbors to hear what they might say. The old were getting feeble, the young ones turning gray. I met with Taylor Quigley, he's brave as ever still. He used to mend my breeches when I lived on Spancel Hill. I took a flying visit to my first and only love. She's pure as any lily, she's gentle as a dove. She threw her arms around me, saying, Michael, I love you still. She's Mac the Ranger's daughter, she's the pride of Spancel Hill. And then I stooped to kiss her, as I did in days of yore. She said, Michael, you're only joking, as you often were before. The cock crew in the morning, he crew both loud and shrill. I awoke in California, far, far from Spancel Hill. My vision faded, and tears came to my eyes. I'd hoped to see that dear old land once more before I die. May the joyous King of Angels his choicest blessings spill on that glorious piece of nature, the cross on Spancel Hill. Thank you. That one's kind of special, isn't it? Yeah. Every night I pick this up and I look up at the faces looking back at me. And about half of them are wondering what this is, and the other half are having repressed middle school memories. Yeah. Some of you recognize this from middle school days. This is an auto harp. This is an auto harp, and it was designed as a school teacher's instrument a long time ago, originally back in the days of the one-room schoolhouse, but it had another musical life in schools in the late 1950s to the late 1960s. They were put in every middle school in the Northeast. The idea was that by the company that made them, that if we put one in every middle school, then every middle school child will get exposed to it and every middle school child will love it. And we will sell lots of them when their birthdays and Christmas and all that rolls around. Well, the idea was good, the execution not quite as good. Because they were giving them away, they had to make them as cheaply as possible. So they made them out of plywood. And plywood has no resonating properties whatsoever, and it was just like putting strings on the floor. It was pretty horrible. And the teachers didn't like it, and they didn't stay in tune, and yada, yada, yada. So in the 1950s, late 1950s through 1964-ish, in the folk rock era when the folk groups were around, the Highwaymen and all those types of people. They would play this auto harp as a rhythm instrument, and they would hold it up and they would strum it with a guitar pick. It was designed to be played by the teachers. It didn't sound anything at all like this one, but it looked kind of like this. But I will show you this just so you get a concept of how it was used to be played. The teacher would do something like this. That's a big generality, but you get the idea. Then the folk people put it up here because they were clever. Making a long story short, somewhere in the 1980s, and we don't really know who, and we don't know where or anything about it, somebody came along, probably a Scotsman, because the Scots are known for doing things the hard way. Somebody came along and looked at this instrument and said, what if we turn it upright and finger pick it instead of strum it? How hard can that be? You're looking at me, sir, like you've never seen or heard that, have you? Oh, well, get ready, because here it comes. Told you, didn't I? When we did a sound check earlier, and Tracy, I played it for Tracy, and she looked at me and said, they're going to love it. Wait and see, they're going to love it. And isn't that amazing? Isn't that an amazing sound? Yeah. Okay, I will take you behind the magic curtain and show you what happens and how I do it, and then good luck. There are 37 strings on this instrument, 37 strings, yeah. And they are, as you can see, very close together. They're very, very close together. Each time I push down a button, there's a dozen buttons over here, and each time I push one down, I get a different musical chord. So I get, each button plays a different musical chord. A chord is nothing more than a grouping of notes that sound well when played together. The way that it does that is on the bottom of each one of these buttons are bits of felt. And when I push the button down, sometimes the felt sits on the string, and sometimes it's notched and lets the string pass through. And by the combination of strings that get muted out by the felt and the ring through, you create the chord. So the easiest way to show you that is if I do this, that sounds really pretty. I will do the same thing, but do it slowly. And if you listen, you'll be able to hear the strings that are muted out. They'll make kind of a clicking sound. You can hear them when I do that. So about half the strings ring and about half the strings don't ring every time I push down a button. And the combination of strings that ring and don't ring obviously are different with each button, which means the palette of notes that I have available to me changes every time I change the button. The palette of notes shifts around a little bit. So the trick is, when you're playing it, is to make sure you play the strings that are going to ring and miss the ones that are going to make the clicking sound. That becomes the challenge. How hard can it be? See if you recognize this one. You might. You ready? Just like that. Yeah. World War II was breaking out over in Germany. And over on the west coast of Scotland, in a little village called Campbellton, Scotland, was a man named George McIntyre. George was a piper in the village bagpipe band. Every village in Scotland to this day has their own bagpipe band. It's just something the Scots do. And when World War II was beginning, George did as so many other young men did, and he joined the army and went off to do his part and help fight the Great War. He was not in Germany for very long before he was captured by the Germans. And he was held in a prisoner of war camp for the rest of the war. He was held for several years. He spent his time in captivity playing his bagpipe tunes over and over and over again in his head. It was his way of staying connected to his village, connected to his music, connected to his instrument, and most likely connected to his sanity in some way, because he was being held in a prisoner of war camp for a long time. While he was there, he wrote a bagpipe tune in his head. He figured it all out, and he figured out where the fingerings were going to be on the chanter and did all that in his head. And when he got back to Scotland at the end of the war, he taught it to the bagpipe band. If you go to Scotland today and the pipe band is marching around, you might just hear this one. It's become a very patriotic, majestic Scottish tune. You don't hear it a lot in America, but you do hear it a lot over there. He calls his tune "The Hills of Argyll." Thank you, thank you. I have been blessed in my life, and I know that. I can play a lot of musical instruments, and I own a lot of musical instruments. But when the house is dark and quiet, and I just want to play for myself, this is the one I pick up and play for me. It is just that special. So it's a joy for me to play it for you tonight. We have hit 3 of the 4 Celtic lands. Which one have we missed? Wales. Let's go to Wales. All right. I'm going to play you a Welsh tune, very, very pretty Welsh tune. Some of you might know it by its name. It's called Ash Grove. Very pretty Welsh tune, very, very well known over there. If you don't know it as Ash Grove, it may still sound familiar to you. We're back to that piggybacking thing again. The melody for Ash Grove has been piggybacked by just about every religion, and they've written their own words for it, and it appears in just about any hymnal that you pick up. You will find Ash Grove in there with whatever words that religion is deemed appropriate for Ash Grove. That doesn't make the tune any less pretty, it just makes it kind of versatile. This is Ash Grove. Thank you. I mentioned, this is kind of a tangent story, but this is something I thought of today and I hadn't thought of in a bit. I mentioned before the Highwaymen as a folk group from the late 1950s, early 1960s. You might not remember when you think of the Highwaymen, you might think of Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and all, but before that, that was the folk group, the Highwaymen. Think Michael Row the Boat Ashore. Remember them? Those Highwaymen. Yep. They came out of Wesleyan University down in Middletown, Connecticut. They were in college when they had that hit, and they were very, very popular for a bunch of years. They were on the Ed Sullivan Show half a dozen times, and they were a really big deal. They were fronted by a man named Stephen Trott. Stephen Trott played the auto harp in the Highwaymen, which is the connection, and he played it as a rhythm instrument. And stuff like that. Last summer, which was 8 months ago, 9 months ago, something like that, one night I was home and sitting on the couch watching the Red Sox lose again. It was my hobby last summer. And the phone rang. And it was a California phone number, which was odd. And I picked up the phone. I said, hello. And he said, hi, this is Stephen Trott. I used to be in a band called the Highwaymen. Stephen Trott had been messing around on YouTube looking for auto harp stuff and found me. Yeah, he found me. And so the guy in the Highwaymen called me. We spent over 2 hours on the phone. And it was, I wish I had a way to record that conversation, because he wanted to ask me questions about finger picking the auto harp because he'd never seen or heard of such a thing. And I wanted to ask him questions about the Highwaymen. So we finally reached a truce, and I could ask him a question, and he could ask me a question. And you often wonder what happened to these guys, don't you? Stephen Trott is a retired federal United States Circuit Court judge. So he did okay. He was in the Ninth Circuit Court out in Utah for a bunch of years, and now he's retired. He's 80-something years old and living in California. This is kind of a neat little out-of-heart story. You never know who's going to find you and pay attention to you. Here I am. But I'm going to play you a Scottish boat song on the harp. The boat songs are the songs that they wrote to go out to the various outer islands on the harp. The most famous boat song is the Sky Boat song, and that's one that many of you know, or many of you have heard, because I'm sure some of you have watched Outlander. You know, somebody's watched Outlander. You watched Outlander, yeah. The women go, me, I watched Outlander. You watched it for the scenery, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah. The guy in the kilt had nothing at all to do with it. At the beginning of every episode of Outlander, when they were running the opening credits and the opening stuff, there was always a female singing a very pretty song about life in Scotland. Remember that? That is the Sky Boat song with words of Outlander stuck on top of it. That's another piggyback. So we're not going to play that one because everybody plays that one. This arrangement actually came to me a week ago at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was 3 o'clock last Saturday morning, so it was Friday night, Saturday morning. I was in a hotel in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, for some reason my brain was still clicking through stuff, and it said, I'll bet the Aaron Boat song would sound pretty on the harp. So of course, being me, I got up and figured it out at 3 o'clock in the morning. So this is the Aaron Boat song. You can let me know if I should keep it or just jettison the tune. Yes, no, keep it. Keep it. Yeah, that's good. My promise is that I will pick this up and play it for you again before we're done tonight, because it is just that special. I will reacquaint you with it, but we're going to move on a bit. Over here. Back in the 1700s, when the merchant ships would leave the various ports in the British Isles to deliver their wares around the world, they could be gone for upwards of 7 years before getting back to their home port. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? That sounds crazy. That's because you're thinking about it today. Let's think about it in the 1700s. And you've got a ship in Dublin. It's fully loaded with whatever it is that they've made in Dublin that they need to deliver to Boston. Off it goes. Well, a fully loaded ship's going to ride very low in the water, and it's going to go very slowly. It's also going to be going into the currents and into the winds all the way across the North Atlantic. That's going to take a very long time to get to Boston. It's going to take several months to get here. And then when you get here, you're going to anchor in the outer harbor and wait your turn for a dock, for space at the dock. And when that happens, you go up to the dock, and now you have to unload the boat, and there's no gantries or cranes or none of those things. You unload it one boxer barrel at a time, See, the months are piling up now, aren't they? And then you don't want to be empty when you leave there, so you go back out to the outer harbor and throw your anchor back out again, and now you're back in line for a load going out of Boston, going someplace else. And when you finally get to the head of that line, you're going wherever that load is going, and it's probably not Dublin. It could be South America or China, or pick your spot, but it's probably not where you started. So you could be gone for a very long time, sometimes upwards of 7 years, before you got back to where you started. Let us look at that a little bit differently. You are the wife or the girlfriend of a sailor, and it is his turn to go. You walk him down to the pier, you kiss him goodbye, up the gangway he goes, ship sails away, you wave, he waves, and you go home. And you wait for up to 7 years to see if he comes back. Sometimes he did, and sometimes he didn't. If he didn't come back, most likely you never found out why. The ship might have sunk. The pirates could have captured him and killed him. He might have found somebody he likes better in another place. I'm pretty sure all those things happened at one time or another, but pretty much gone was gone. As I told you earlier, when something happens in the Celtic lands, the way that they record the event is that somebody writes a song about it. This is a song about an English sailor. His name is John Riley. Young maid in her garden, strange young man came riding by, said, fair young maid, will you marry me? This then, sir, was her reply. No, kind sir, I cannot marry thee. I've a love, he sails the deep salt sea. He's been gone these 7 years, still no man shall marry me. He said to her, what if he's died or in a battle slain? What if he's drowned in the deep salt sea? What if he's found another love? He and his new love both married be. And she answered him, if he's died or in a battle slain, I will die when the moon doth wane. If he's drowned in the deep salt sea, I will be true to his memory. He picked her up in his arms, kisses gave her 1, 2, and 3. Weep no more, my own true love, I am your love, lost John Riley. Weep no more, my own true love, I am your love, lost John Riley. You thought that was going to be another sad one, didn't you? Surprise. This is a bouzouki. Bouzouki. B-O-U-Z-O-U-K-I. There are 2 types of bouzouki's in the world. The most common and well known is a Greek bouzouki. A Greek bouzouki has a rounded, it's more ovally shaped, and it's got a big round bowl type thing on it. And the Greeks like to do things like, isn't that awful? They love it. This is the Celtic bouzouki. And this is really cool. This bouzouki was made in Inverness, Scotland, by a man named David Freshwater. And if I just strum it, you can just close your eyes and kind of picture Ireland or Scotland or the mist and the moors. And can't you? Does that answer your question, ma'am? Yeah? Good. You have been sitting very nicely for almost an hour. Doesn't seem like that long, does it? No. And I'm not done, so don't put your coats on quite yet. But we have reached the point that you have been waiting for since you came in and sat down. You just didn't know it until now. And I will share that with you. Up until this point, I have done all of the work. I have done it all. We have reached the point where you're going to sing for me. You're going to help me sing a song. It's very simple. I'm going to give you a piece of the chorus, 5 words. 5 words. I know that you can do 5 words. But let me tell you the backstory first. I told you about growing up in a very, very Scottish household and all the things that happened when I was a child growing up. My dad's name was Donald, very Scottish name. A lot of Scots are named Donald. He had a friend who was also a Scot and coincidentally also named Donald, and they were very close. And when I was a child growing up, Donald and Donald would be getting together in the house, and they would listen to the bagpipe records and the folk songs. And when the bagpipe records were playing, they would march around the house, pretend they were going off to get the English and doing all kinds of other things. And marching right along with them most of the time would be their third friend, Johnny Walker. You know him, do you, ma'am? There was one song that when it came up in the rotation and it got played over and over and over again. It was a song about a man named Donald. And they were absolutely convinced that this song was written about them and for them. And it wasn't, but they didn't care. This Donald lived up in the Isle of Skye many years ago. And the Isle of Skye is off the northwest coast of Scotland. And he decided that he was going to leave Skye and go on vacation down to London. That was a pretty big deal a long time ago because, as we talked about before, the English and the Scots didn't get along, and the Scots weren't going to go down and visit the English. But for whatever reason, Donald got it in his head that he was going to go to London and look around, so off he went. He went down to London and was wandering around London wearing his kilt. And that created quite a stir because the women in London had never seen a man wearing a kilt before. It was not something that the Englishmen ever wore. They all wore trousers. None of them ever wore a kilt. So they see this guy with this thing wrapped around him, and they didn't know what it was. So every time he would run into somebody in London, they would just look at him and say, "Donald, what are your trousers?" Because they expected him to be wearing trousers, not a kilt. Somebody writes a song about it. We're going to sing the song tonight about Donald and his kilt and his lack of trousers. And you will help me. You'll have 5 lines in the chorus and sing it as loud as you can. Nobody else is in this building. It doesn't matter. The first line of the chorus is mine. I will sing to you, "Let the wind blow high." Would you like to share with us what you're laughing at, ma'am? Yeah. Just be very glad that I'm not wearing my kilt right now. And you will sing back to me, "Let the wind blow low." And I will do the rest. Easy enough? Goes just like this. Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low. Ready? Let the wind blow high. Well, you can go louder than that. Let the wind blow high. We'll get there. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, "Hello, Donald, what are your trousers?" I just come down from the Isle of Skye. I'm no very big and I'm awful shy. Lassies shout when I go by, "Donald, where's your trousers?" Let the wind blow high. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, "Hello, Donald, where's your trousers?" Well, I went down to London town and I had some fun in the underground. Ladies turned their heads around saying, "Donald, what are your trousers?" Let the wind blow high. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, "Hello, Donald, where's your trousers?" Well, a lassie took me to a ball. It was slippery in the hall, and I was afraid that I might fall, for I wasn't wearing me trousers. Let the wind blow high. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? Well, the lassies want me, everyone. Let them catch me if they can. You cannot put the breeks on a Highland man, 'cause they won't wear no trousers. Let the wind blow high. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? Let the wind blow high. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? That was good. That was a test. That was a test to see if you could handle a sing-along. And you can. So we're going to do another one. We'll do an Irish sing-along. And this time, instead of 5 words, I'm going to give you the whole chorus because you can handle this. You ready? This is your part. You're looking very confident, aren't you, Tracy? All right. So Tracy's going to help lead you through the chorus. Do your part. You ready? Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. I'm gonna marry Mary from my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be feeling merry when I marry Mary Mac. No, huh? Tracy? No, okay. All right. I will help you. I will sing Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. You will sing back to me, my father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. My father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. Got it? That's what my 5-year-old grandson says to me when he tells me something. Got it? Yeah, I got it. Okay, here we go. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary, Mary Mac. Ready? Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. Not bad. That wasn't bad. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be feeling merry when I marry Mary Mac. Well, there is a little lass and her name is Mary Mac. Make no mistake, she's a girl I want to tack. And a lot of other fellas try to get up on her track. And I'm thinking that I'd have to get up early. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. You're not getting better. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be feeling merry when I marry Mary Mac. Well, this little lass, she's got a lot of class, got a lot of brass, and her father thinks I'm gas, and I'd be a silly ass if I let the matter pass. Her father says, we treat you really fairly. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be feeling merry when I marry Mary Mac. Well, Mary and her mother go an awful lot together. In fact, you hardly ever see the one without the other. And all the people wonder if it's Mary or her mother or the both of them together that I'm courting. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. If I wasn't playing, you wouldn't have made it. I covered you up a little bit. Try that again. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be feeling merry when I marry Mary Mac. Let's do it one more time. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. Perfect. Are you having fun tonight? Good, good, good. Good, good, good. Well, please don't thank me. As much as I'd like you to think that I randomly wandered in here tonight, you've all tried to find this room. Nobody randomly wanders in here. The only way you ever find this room is if you're aiming for it, and there's probably some still people out by the elevator. I am here because of the efforts of Tracy. She's the one that made it happen. She's the one that found me and said, would you come here and do this? And then in your local cultural council is funding this program. So please support your library, support Tracy, support the cultural council. They do cool stuff like this for you. And you know, it's fun, isn't it? This is fun stuff. Okay. Let us play. Let's go back to England. I'm going to play for you an English children's song. Because I think we got a couple of children's over in the corner on the floor or something back there. Yeah, I saw a couple of small faces come in and disappear, but I think they're back behind those chairs. I'm going to play you an English children's song from the middle of the 1600s, a long time ago. This song is called The Elfin Knight. Elfin Knight. E-L-F-I-N-K-N-I-G-H-T. Elfin Knight. Elfin Knight, translated to today, roughly, means small male child, wee little lad, young boy, something along those lines. This is The Elfin Knight. Okay, so how did I get from Elfin Knight to Scarborough Fair? The song, now when I started that, when I played that little bit, the guitar bit in the beginning, just about everybody in here knew Scarborough Fair. You picked it up right away. And probably half you thought that I had just gone around the bend or something. I said one thing and started playing something else. The song that you know as Scarborough Fair began in the 1600s as the Elfin Knight. It's an English children's song from that far back. The first recorded instance of it is about 1600, 1650, I think. And it was, there's a Wikipedia page for the Elfin Knight. So if you go to the Wikipedia page and look it up, you will find the original words from the 1600s for the song. And you start to read through the words, and you'll find little bits and pieces that, you'll find enough in there that will convince you that the songs are connected somehow. Folk songs morph and change over time, because as they teach somebody else the song, they add their own little twists or whatever to it and change the words. And so over 300 or 400 years, the song gets turned and twisted and changed a lot. Somewhere around 1900, the song stopped being called the Elfin Knight over in England. It was just called Scarborough Fair. But it was like a second or third tier folk song over there. It was not a mainstream folk song back then. Somewhere around 1948, a man named Martin Carty, an English folk singer who's still alive and still touring, got a hold of the song. He found it. And he is the one that wrote the guitar part that you recognized. And he wrote the melody and put all those pieces together that you recognized. It was written by Martin Carty. Paul Simon graduated from high school at the age of 18, and when he decided he wanted to be a folk singer, he went to London, because that's where you went if you really wanted to be serious about being a folk singer. He went to London, he hooked up with Martin Carty, and they went off on tour together. And while they were off on tour, Martin Carty taught Paul Simon Scarborough Fair. Paul Simon came back to America, wrote the second part, the canticle, and then put the two pieces together and made the song that you know as Scarborough Fair. But what you recognized was not Paul Simon's work, it was Martin Carty's work. And I find that an important distinction. Another folk singer that went over to England at about the same time and toured with Martin Carty is a man named Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan went to England and toured with Martin Carty, and Martin Carty tried to teach Bob Dylan Scarborough Fair. You're shaking your head no. Bob Dylan did not have the guitar chops to play that. Bob Dylan is a brilliant songwriter, but his musical instrument skills are not very good. And the part that I played for you tonight was beyond his abilities back then. But he loved the song. So he came back to America with the melody. Next time you hear Bob Dylan's Girl from the North Country, listen to it carefully. It is Scarborough Fair with Bob Dylan's words up on top of it. He piggybacked Scarborough Fair. That's how he did it. Very cool stuff. Let me take a drink of this. This is kind of long. "1855, John Hunt leaves his home in Ireland and comes to the United States. He settles in Aberdeen, Maryland, which is just a little bit north of Baltimore, Maryland. He gets married, he has a job, he has kids, buys a house, he does all those kinds of things. John Hunt spent the rest of his life in Maryland. John Hunt died in Aberdeen, Maryland, and John Hunt is buried in Aberdeen, Maryland. As I tell you the story and play for you the song that goes with it, please keep in mind that when John Hunt came here in 1855, he was 13 years old. Let us think about that for a moment. Let us think about our 13-year-old child or our 13-year-old grandchild or our 13-year-old niece or nephew, or just a 13-year-old kid who's living down the street, leaving home, going to a country where they don't know anybody. John Hunt knew nobody in America when he came here, and he had no idea at all what he was going to do when he got here. He just knew that if he was going to make something of himself in the world, he needed to get out of Ireland, and America was the place. So over he came, and he figured out the rest of it when he got here. John's another one who never went back and saw his family again. Back in Ireland, John Hunt's father, a man named Brian Hunt, could not read or write, but Brian lived next door to the schoolmaster in their village. So every year he would go over to the schoolmaster's house and he would dictate to him a letter, all of the comings and goings of the family, who got married, who had kids, who died, all the kinds of things that we do instantly today with a text message. Think about that for a moment. They did it once a year with the annual family letter. That's their communication back then, one letter a year. And every letter included a request for John to come back and see his family again, and he never did. 1972, a man named Peter Jones is cleaning out a house in Aberdeen, Maryland. And in that house, he finds a stack of old papers. Those papers were the letters that had been written to John Hunt 100 years earlier. They had survived in this house somehow. Peter Jones took those letters and he laid them all out and figured out how to piece this together chronologically. And he turned that into something that we know today as the Ballad of Kilkelly, Ireland, the story of the Hunt family. Kilkelly, Ireland, 1860, my dear and loving son John. Your good friend the schoolmaster Pat McNamara, so good to write these words down. Your brothers have all gone to find work in England. The house is so empty and sad. The crop of potatoes is sorely infected, a third to a half of them bad. Your sister Bridget and Patrick O'Donnell are going to be married in June. Your mother says not to work on the railroad. Be sure and come on home soon. Kilkelly, Ireland, 1870, my dear and loving son John. Hello to your missus, to your 4 children, may they grow healthy and strong. Our Michael has got in a wee bit of trouble, I don't think that he'll ever learn. Because of the dampness, there's no turf to speak of. We have nothing to burn. Bridget is happy and named the child for her. You know she's got 6 of her own. You say you found work. You don't say what kind. When are you coming home? Kilkelly, Ireland, 18 and 80. Michael and John, my sons. I'm sorry to give you the very sad news. Your mother's passed on. We buried her down at the church in Kilkelly. Your brothers and Bridget were there. You don't have to worry. She died very quickly. Remember her in your prayers. It's so good to hear that Michael's returning. With money he's sure to buy land. The crop has been poor and the people are selling at any price that they can. Kilkelly, Ireland, 18 and 90. My dear and loving son John. I suppose that I must be close on to 80. 30 years you've been gone. Because of all of the money you sent me, I'm still living out on my own. Michael has built himself a fine house. Bridget's daughters are grown. Thank you for sending your family picture. They're lovely young women and men. Why don't you think about coming to visit? A joy to see you again. Kilkelly, Ireland, 18 and 92. My dear brother John. I'm sorry I didn't write sooner to tell you. Father is gone. He was living with Bridget. She said he was cheerful, healthy right up to the end. You should have seen him play with the grandchildren of Pat McNamara, your friend. We buried him alongside of Mother down at the Kilkelly churchyard. He was a strong and feisty old man, considering his life was so hard. It's funny the way he kept talking about you. He called for you at the end. Why don't you think about coming to visit? We'd all like to see you again. That one is extra special. That one is extra special. And that is one that I have played every night for decades, decades and decades. And I always will. As long as I'm able to sit in this chair and tell stories and play songs, that song will show up. It has attached itself to me in many ways over the years. And it's one that I have some musical level of notoriety for, but I don't really care about that. But I want to share with you the reason that is important. I have seen the letters. I have seen the letters. And I have transcriptions of the letters. There's 22 of them, I believe, in the series. And it's a bit challenging to read in spots because it's all I can think of is the old Shakespeare way of writing things. When I was in high school, I read Shakespeare because they made me. And I got to the end of it and had no idea at all what I read. And there's bits and pieces of it that are like that, but it's 22 letters kind of squished down to a 5.5-minute song, but it tells a very, very powerful story. And I tell you all that to tell you this. In the back of the room on the table or desk back there, there's some cards with my picture on one side. But on the other side of those cards is a whole bunch of information. And one of those things that's important here is my website address. If you go to my website, go to the main page of my website and look up at the top where all the links are, right up at the far right-hand side, you will find a link for Kilkelly, Ireland. I have a page on my website for Kilkelly, Ireland. And if you click that link, it will take you to the page. And on that page, you will find pictures and some more information on Kilkelly, Ireland, but you'll also find the transcriptions of the first and last letter. They are up there for you to read and get a sense of the story in their own words. Also on that page, if that fires up your interest, is a button that you can push that will pop up an email window all addressed to me. All you have to do is fill in your information. Tell me that you met me tonight in Westborough, Massachusetts. And my thanks to you for coming, my gift to you for being here, will be to send you a PDF file of all 22 letters. And you may have them all and read them and do with them as you wish and share them as you wish. I have them for the purpose of sharing them. That is why I have them. It's a very popular, very important story. And if you Google Kilkelly letters, that will also take you to me because they're not out there in very many places. So you'll find me that way. But because of that, I hear from people all over the world who hear the song, hear the story, and Google the letters and find me. And by now I have sent the letters to just about every corner of the world. And I'm happy to do so. It's always fun. But I want to share one of those stories with you tonight. This happened 8 years ago, and I remember it like it happened yesterday. One afternoon, I got an email from a man who lived just outside of Atlantic City, New Jersey, a little town way down in the bottom corner of New Jersey. And he had Googled Kilkelly letters and asked if I would send him the file, and of course I did right away, and he corresponded back. Do you remember the part of the song about the brother Michael? Michael got in trouble and went off and got a house, then Michael came back and straightened himself out and all that. This man in New Jersey is Michael Hunt's great-great-grandson. The Hunt family knew the song, they knew the story, they knew that the whole thing was based on letters. What they did not know was that the letters existed in any form. So I was able to give the Hunt family the transcriptions of the letters, so now they have that. Now you see why this thing becomes important to me. It just connects itself to me. The story that I told you in the beginning about John Hunt coming to America at 13 years old and his trials and all of that came from him. That is the Hunt family lore of how John got here and all that happened to him. So it's just a very important story to me and one that I will play every day. I have played it in all kinds of settings. I have played it in rooms packed with Irish grandmothers. When I play the song, every night I look up and I see emotion building in the room. So I see sadness building in the room. And that's a good thing. That's supposed to happen. That is what's supposed to happen with that song. But when you play it in front of Irish grandmothers, we have a whole nother stratosphere type thing of emotion that you can't even begin to imagine sometimes. But I will share one thing with you that I have learned about Irish grandmothers over the years of watching this. An Irish grandmother can hide an entire box of Kleenex on her person. You know somebody like that, don't you? I will start playing the song, and somewhere around the second verse, I will look up, and we're down here, and we're up here, and in the back of the room, we are passing the Kleenex back and forth, and it's sometimes it's hard for me not to smile when I'm playing this very, very sad song. I'm watching the show going on in the back of the room. It has been an honor and a privilege for me to come here and play for you tonight and to have you spend your evening with me. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I promised you I'd pick this up again, and I have. And I will play it again. I'll play you two more on the harp, if I may. I will play you an old Irish sea tune, an old Irish sailor's tune called South Wind. Very, very pretty melody. And then I will finish us off tonight with the song that gets played at the end of Scottish music sessions all over the world when the Scottish musicians get together, we always play the same thing last. I have no idea why, but we just do. We sing it in America at the end of the year. It's based on a Robert Burns poem. You know, some of you got it now, but thank you for coming. When we're done tonight, I'll be around if you have any questions or you just want to come by and say hello. It'd be great to meet you all one at a time. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. Thank you.